So, in 2016, do you think either Jeb Bush or Mitt Romney could run as the candidate who talks about what you talk about blue-collar economics, about inequality, about outrage? Do either of them have the credibility to talk about this?
I think that's, again, I don't want to play pundit with the other folks. I think authenticity matters. And having a track record, you get involved in issues when I was in the United States Senate on welfare reform, to manufacturing issues, to all the things I talked about. I've got a long track record of having worked on those issues. So whether others want to take on that mantle and run with it because they see it as a really good political opportunity, that's for them to decide. I'm flattered. I mean, I think it's great that the message that we have been saying for a long time, but in particular in 2012, is gaining some momentum within the party. At least hopefully today, through this speech, I didn't. Obviously, this was not a rah-rah, stir up the crowd kind of speech. This is a serious time, and we have some real decision making to do as a party. Because if we continue down the path that we've been doing of just the sort of the simple cut taxes, cut spending, balance the budget, and that's our economic plan, we're not going to win a lot of elections. I think I heard Mike Lee say, we've lost 5 out of the 6 last popular votes, and I think a big chunk of it is because we're not connecting with voters who would like to vote for us, but are not because they don't think we really care about it. And that's the message that I tried to deliver here today. It's not, like I said, it was not a stump speech. It was a serious talk to serious people about what they should be looking for in a candidate for 2016.
Senator, you've spoken in the past about working for Americans who don't go to college, focusing on the fact that a lot of Americans don't in fact attend college. I'm curious, what's your position on President Obama's plan to offer 2 free years of community college? And even if you don't support that plan, do you think that more people should be given the opportunity to attend community college? Is that important?
I would say that the fact that the president has picked out community college, which is a government-run college, as opposed to private career and technical schools, which in many cases do better jobs than community colleges, shows you the predisposition of this president toward government and government institution as opposed to private sector institutions. In fact, as we know, the president's been at war with private and technical schools and trying to deny federal student loans and doing a whole lot of things to certify them. And this is just a hostility. And so I see this as sort of a continuation of trying to, less trying to help those who need access to college and more trying to destroy private and career and technical schools. Because if it's free to go there and you have to pay to go there, well, guess what's going to happen to the entire private sector of schools? So I'd like to assign a good motive to the president, but if you look at his attacks in the past, I think it's more of the same.
Can I follow up to ask, if you don't like that idea, do you agree with the idea of getting more people in school, and then what is your proposal to do that?
Yeah, I mentioned before that we need to apprenticeships, technical,
how they're going to pay for that.
Vocational education. I mean, one of the reasons that a lot of folks have to go back to community colleges and private and career and technical schools is because we've abandoned vocational education in our high schools. I mean, when I was growing up, I'm obviously older than most of you, but vocational education was a very viable and vibrant part of the educational experience where you could learn skills that would be marketable skills. Go to school half day, work in a vocational, go do trades, get an apprenticeship. Under what I'm talking about, which is trying to restore the manufacturing base of this country and build a more vibrant middle of America, vocational education becomes a very big part of that. And if we can restore that, then we're doing it before we have to pay extra for it after school and include it within the high school curriculum.
Senator, some of the establishment candidates don't seem to want to talk about traditional marriage. Say that this is an issue that's been litigated in this past. You still hold that view. How big of an issue do you think it'll be in the caucuses this year versus last time?
Well, I don't know how big an issue it's going to be. Again, you're asking me to play political commentator. What I can say is that you heard me talk about the importance of marriage and the family. And I think the most important thing that we can do as leaders within the party is to highlight the importance of restoring marriage and encouraging marriage from an economic point of view as well as from a societal point of view. And I think if we do that, then I think you lay a better groundwork for discussing that issue. But I think right now, I'm going to be focused and centered on seeing what we can do to help restore the American family.
Does the Supreme Court, considering the issue, change the dynamic at all, in your view?
It all depends on what they decide.
Back on same-sex marriage, you mentioned in your speech that, we can't deal with Iran because they let Greek theology dictate public policy. Isn't this similar of your view on same-sex marriage to letting theology influence public policy?
Well, I think there's difference. When I was talking about Iran, I was talking about their end of times eschatology of the 12th Imam as a grave concern of giving a nuclear weapon to a country that believes that by causing the end of the war, end of civilization, your savior will come back. That's a little different than having a public policy based on moral precepts as well as societal and sociological facts. So I don't think I'm equating the two. I think one is a very, very different thing. That everybody has a right in America to come into the public square, whether you're faith or no faith, and make your claim as to what you want any issue to be. And just because you're a person of faith doesn't mean you're not allowed to have a position on an issue that may be in part or in whole rooted on faith.
For many of these possible candidates who may be considering entering into those caucuses, how important is it to spend time here in Iowa as you did the last cycle? Well,
I think spending time in Iowa is critical. I mean, there's these events are really great and they're important, but what I found, and that's why I said at the end, that 99 counties really matters. Getting around and people to see you in the flesh, not from a stage, not with a prepared text, but really interacting with you. And that's we didn't win the Iowa caucuses last time because of a few big events that we did. We won the Iowa caucuses because people had an opportunity to see up close and personal who you are, what you believe in, and what you're made of. And I think that's what Iowans will do this time too.
Senator, what would you say to the thousands of couples that have been married in the states that have passed gay marriage that could potentially lose that status?
If anybody else gets the same number of questions on this subject as I do. But, having said that, look, I think I made myself clear as to what the focus of the campaign would be, and we're going to keep the focus on trying to do what we can to help improve what has been determined, even by studies on the left, as the most critical part of the hollowing out of the middle of America, and that's the breakdown of the family. And so I think it's important for us to try to help government get out of the way so people can, if they want to, marry without being overly penalized by the government for doing so. And at the same time, we need to make sure our tax code and our other laws, as well as the bully pulpit of the presidency, talks about the importance of marriage and fatherhood, in particular for where now a majority of Americans are growing up without a father in the home.
Last question. Yep. Follow up. So
There's somebody else. So yeah.
I just wanted to ask, were you disappointed by the House GOP's inability to push forward 20-week abortion ban? And I guess with more sort of moderate members of the House coming into office this term, do you think it'll become another social issue where we see a little bit of a split in the party?
The vast majority of Americans support this legislation. We're talking about a baby that is five months old and that would otherwise be born alive in most cases. And certainly, as you know from the scientific literature, feel pain. I understand people have concerns about things, but it's 5 months. We're not talking about, making someone make a decision about pregnancy, early pregnancy. Though my feelings about that. That's not what this bill does. This says 5 months. You have 5 months to determine whether you want to have an abortion. But at some point, this child has to get some rights. And this bill provides, I think, a pretty common sense, reasonable approach. That once a baby can feel pain, once a baby can otherwise be born alive, that baby starts to have, in the womb, starts to have some rights that have to be respected. I don't think that's radical. I think if you're looking for something that's a compromise, something that's a reasonable middle where most Americans feel comfortable, I think that's what this bill does. And I'm disappointed that some members felt uncomfortable with that. I'm hopeful that they'll go back and look at it and realize that we're not putting an undue burden on anybody. When you give someone 5 months to make a decision, that's a reasonable time, and at some point, in this case 20 weeks was chosen, at some point that baby should have some rights, and that's what this bill does.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all very much.
Do you think